The air in the Waldorf Astoria's grand ballroom hung heavy with the scent of aged champagne and polished ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden haze over the crowd of over 300 bankers in tailored suits, investors clutching leather portfolios, reporters with cameras poised like weapons. I stood at the back, my navy suit blending into the shadows, watching her. Miranda, my wife of 10 years, the woman who'd once shared late-night sketches of dream projects with me over cheap coffee. Now she commanded the stage in her sleek black gown, her voice cutting through the murmur like a blade through silk. She was flawless up there, her high bun accentuating the sharp lines of her face, her smile radiating the kind of confidence that turned heads and sealed deals. This was her moment, the signing of a $750 million urban development contract between her company Cole & Hart Urban Solutions and Newbury Investment Group, a project that would reshape Chicago's skyline, cement her as the city's rising star in real estate. I'd known about it for months, of course. I'd made sure of it. As her speech wrapped up to thunderous applause, I stepped forward from my spot in the rear row. No one noticed me at first. Why would they? I wasn't flashing a VIP badge or a Rolex. Just a quiet man in a simple suit holding a glass of white wine, wanting to share in her triumph. I approached the edge of the stage where she was descending, her heels clicking against the marble like ticking clocks. "Congratulations, Miranda," I said softly, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "You've built something incredible. I'm proud of you." She turned, her eyes narrowing for a split second before that practiced smile returned. But it didn't reach her eyes. "Spencer," she replied. Her tone clipped like my presence was an unwelcome interruption. "What are you doing here?" "I came to support you. This is huge." She cut me off with a laugh sharp and echoing in the sudden hush around us. A few heads turned. "Support Spencer, please! Look around! This is my world now. Executives, investors, the mayor's office, people who make things happen, and you. You're still drawing those outdated blueprints in your home office. You don't belong here!" Her words landed like a punch, but I held my ground, my grip tightening on the glass. "Miranda, I just wanted... You want to stand next to me and pretend you're part of this..." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper, but loud enough for the nearby cluster of reporters to catch. "You're not! You're worthless in my world, Spencer! A dead weight I haven't gotten around to cutting loose yet!" The ballroom seemed to tilt. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A photographer's flash went off, and then with a deliberate flick of her wrist, she lifted her glass of Merlot, deep red like blood, and poured it straight over my face. The liquid cascaded down, soaking my collar, staining my shirt crimson. It burned. My eyes dripped from my chin onto the polished floor. Laughter erupted from a few corners, hesitant at first, then bolder. Phones came out, recording the spectacle. "That's what you get for crashing the party," someone muttered. I didn't flinch. Didn't wipe it away immediately. The wine's tart scent filled my nostrils, mingling with the humiliation that burned hotter than the liquid itself. Miranda stood there, her chin lifted triumphant. "Maybe now you'll remember your place," she said loud enough for the microphones. "Go home, Spencer. This isn't for you." The room blurred around me, flashes, whispers, the clink of glasses resuming as if nothing had happened. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a handkerchief, and slowly dabbed at my face. My heart pounded, but my expression remained calm. No outburst. No scene. That wasn't my way. I turned, my steps measured, weaving through the gawking crowd toward the exit. Behind me, I heard her voice rise again, addressing the room. "My husband gets emotional seeing me succeed. Let's get back to business." The double doors swung shut behind me, muffling the applause that followed. Outside, under the hotel's grand awning, Chicago's autumn wind whipped at my wet shirt, chilling me to the bone. I stood there for a moment, the city lights reflecting off the puddles on Michigan Avenue. Cars honked in the distance, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I pulled out my phone, my fingers steady despite the rage simmering beneath. Scrolling to the contact labeled RL for Wings V3, I hit call. Rachel Lynn answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and professional as always. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I saw the live stream. Are you all right? Activate Clause 47. I replied, my tone even. "Suspend all funding operations, instruct them to halt the signing ceremony immediately." There was a brief pause on her end, the sound of keys tapping. "Understood. Do you want to go public with ownership yet?" "Not yet. Cancel the deal first. Cancel everything she thinks she controls." The line went silent as she executed the order. I pocketed the phone and hailed a cab, the wine still sticky on my skin. Miranda had no idea what she'd just unleashed. For years, I'd been the shadow behind her spotlight. Now it was time for the light to fade. As the cab pulled away from the Waldorf Astoria, the city lights streaked past like blurred memories. I leaned back against the worn leather seat, the wine still clinging to my skin, its sticky residue a reminder of the evening's humiliation. But beneath the sting, a calm resolve settled in. Miranda had crossed a line tonight, one she'd been tiptoeing toward for years. I closed my eyes, letting the hum of Chicago's traffic wash over me, and thought back to how it all began. How I, Spencer Cole, had built her empire from the shadows only to watch her turn it against me. It started 10 years ago in a cramped studio apartment on the north side where the winters seeped through the thin walls and the summers turned the place into a furnace. I was 34 then, a rising architect with a portfolio full of innovative designs, sustainable high-rises, community centers that blended form and function. My work had landed me contracts with mid-tier developers enough to pay the bills, but not enough to chase the spotlight. That's when I met Miranda at a networking event in a dimly lit bar downtown. She was 28, sharp as a tack, working as a junior analyst for a small real estate firm. Her eyes lit up when she talked about urban renewal, about transforming blighted neighborhoods into thriving hubs. We bonded over sketches on napkins, debating green spaces versus commercial density until the bar closed. Our first date was simple, a walk along the lakefront trail, coffee in hand, dreaming aloud about the city we could shape together. She saw potential in me, or so I thought. "You're not like the others," she'd said, her hand slipping into mine. "You build things that last." I fell hard. Within a year, we were married in a quiet ceremony at City Hall. No fanfare, just us and a couple of witnesses. I promised her the world, and in my way, I delivered. But Miranda's ambitions grew faster than our life together. She wanted her own firm, a platform to launch her vision. Cole & Hart Urban Solutions. She pitched to me one night over takeout Chinese. Julian Hart was her college acquaintance, a slick marketer with connections in the investment world. I saw the fire in her eyes and knew I had to help. That's when I started Veritas Group. Quietly, anonymously, I liquidated some of my personal asset savings from old projects, a small inheritance from my parents, and set it up as a private equity fund through a Delaware shell company. No one knew it was mine, not even Miranda. I funneled the initial capital into her startup, posing as an angel investor through intermediaries. Rachel Lynn, my trusted lawyer and financial advisor, handled the details. She was brilliant, a Harvard grad who'd specialized in corporate structuring, and she became my silent partner in keeping Veritas under wraps. In those early days, I was Miranda's rock. I'd come home from site visits covered in dust and find her poring over proposals. We'd brainstorm late into the night, me sketching layouts, her crunching numbers. "We make a great team," she'd whisper, pulling me close. But as Cole & Hart grew, so did the distance. The first big win was a $50 million redevelopment in the Loop. Veritas provided the bridge loan disguised through Newberry's network. Miranda celebrated with champagne and a promotion for Julian. I smiled from the sidelines, content to let her shine. Gradually, though, the cracks appeared. She started staying late at the office, claiming client dinners. I'd noticed the faint scent of cologne on her clothes, not mine. Julian's name cropped up more often, always in glowing terms. "He's a visionary Spencer. He gets the game." I confronted her once gently over dinner. "Is there something going on?" She'd laughed it off. "Don't be paranoid. You're my husband, not my keeper." But I wasn't blind. Rachel confirmed my suspicions with discreet checks, hotel receipts, shared calendars. Julian wasn't just her partner. He was her lover. I could have ended it then. Divorced her, pulled Veritas' strings, but I held back. Part of me still loved the woman I'd married, the one with napkin dreams, and part of me wanted to see how far she'd go. Over the years, I deepened Veritas' hold. I acquired silent stakes in Cole & Hart, 60% by now, through layered trusts. Every investor she courted routed through my fund, every loan backed by my guarantees. She thought she was self-made, a powerhouse CEO climbing on her own merit. But I was the latter. The signs of her disdain grew. At parties, she'd introduce me as my husband, the former architect, with a pitying smile. Friends whispered about how I rode her coattails. I let it slide, focusing on my own quiet pursuits, consulting gigs that kept me sharp, but nothing flashy. Rachel urged me to reveal Veritas. Why hide you? Deserve credit. But I shook my head. It's not about credit. It's about trust. Then came the $750 million deal. Newbury approached her 6 months ago, dangling the urban renewal project, a massive complex of offices, residences, and parks on the south side. Miranda threw herself into it, barely coming home. I knew every detail. Veritas was the primary backer for Newbury. Rachel kept me updated on the negotiation. She's close to signing, she'd said last week, but Julian's pushing for clauses that cut you out post-deal. That's when I decided to attend the ceremony, not to confront but to observe, to give her one last chance. As I sat in that back row watching her bask in the applause, a flicker of hope stirred. Maybe she'd acknowledge me. Maybe we'd share a glance, a reminder of our beginnings. But no, the wine on my face extinguished that. As the cab sped toward my downtown loft, a modest place I'd kept separate from our shared penthouse, I replayed her words, "You're worthless in my world." The driver glanced in the rear view. "Rough night, buddy." "You could say that." I wiped the last traces of red from my collar, my mind already shifting gears. Rachel's text came through. Clause 47 activated, Newbury's pulling the plug, ceremony halted. Good. Let the unraveling begin. By the time I reached home, the loft's quiet enveloped me. I poured a Scotch neat and sat by the window overlooking the glittering skyline. Miranda's calls started flooding in 5 missed then voicemails. "Spencer, what the hell is going on? Call me back." Her voice cracked with panic, a far cry from the triumph earlier. I didn't answer. Not yet. Let her stew in the uncertainty just as I'd stewed in her indifference. Tomorrow the real revelations would come. For now, I sipped my drink, the city lights mocking her fallen empire. She'd learn soon enough the man she poured wine on wasn't just her husband. He was the architect of everything she held dear. And now I was dismantling it brick by brick. The cab ride home felt interminable, the city's neon glow mocking me through the rain-streaked windows. My shirt clung to my skin, the Merlot's stain a dark bloom across my chest, but I barely noticed. My mind was already elsewhere, piecing together the fallout. Rachel's confirmation text had come through moments after I'd hung up. Clause 47 initiated. Newbury's team has been notified. Expect disruption in 5. I stared at my phone, the screen's light casting harsh shadows on my face. 5 minutes. That's all it would take to unravel what Miranda had spent years building. I pictured the ballroom as I'd left it, guests milling about toasting to the impending deal, Miranda at the center like a queen on her throne. She'd be basking in it now, shaking hands, flashing that triumphant smile. But soon, the first cracks would appear. I leaned forward and asked the driver to pull over near a quiet cafe on Michigan Avenue. I needed a moment to compose myself, to listen as it all came undone. Stepping out into the cool night air, I found a bench under an awning, the distant hum of traffic a steady backdrop. My phone buzzed again. Rachel. I answered on speaker, keeping my voice low. "It's happening," she said without preamble. "Newbury's lead rep just got the memo. He's heading to the stage now." "Patch me in if you can," I replied. Rachel had eyes everywhere, discreet contacts in the room feeding her real-time updates. A moment later, my phone dinged with an audio link. I slipped in my earbuds and listened. The ballroom's ambient chatter filled my ears, punctuated by the clink of glasses and polite laughter. Then a microphone feedback squeal cut through. "Ladies and gentlemen," a man's voice announced, tense and apologetic, the Newbury rep, I assumed. "I'm afraid there's been an unexpected development. On behalf of Newbury Investment Group, I must inform you that the signing ceremony is postponed indefinitely." A murmur rippled through the crowd, growing into a wave of confusion. "What do you mean, postponed?" someone called out. I could hear chairs scraping, voices rising. Due to directives from our primary funding partner, Veritas Group, the rep continued his words, stumbling slightly. "All financial commitments are suspended effective immediately. We apologize for the inconvenience and will provide updates as soon as possible." The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, the shuffle of feet. And then her voice, Miranda's, piercing through the chaos. "This has to be a mistake!" she demanded, her tone laced with fury. "We finalized terms last week. Call your superiors now!" I closed my eyes, imagining the scene: Miranda storming toward the rep, her black gown swirling like a storm cloud, face flushed not with wine but with panic. Julian would be right behind her, or sweating through his crisp shirt, his usual swagger crumbling. The reporters would be frenzying, cameras flashing, questions flying. "Ms. Cole, any comment on the suspension? Is this related to internal issues at Cole & Hart?" Rachel's voice cut back in over the audio feed. "She's losing it, Spencer. Julian's on his phone, probably trying to reach our dummy contacts at Veritas. The crowd's dispersing investors look spooked." "Good," I murmured. Clause 47 was my safeguard buried deep in the contract's fine print. It allowed Veritas to withdraw if any ethical breaches were uncovered in the partner's operations. Rachel had compiled the dossier months ago, receipts showing Miranda and Julian diverting company funds for personal luxuries, private jets to the Hamptons, lavish dinners charged as client meetings, even a suspiciously timed consulting fee that traced back to Julian's offshore account. It wasn't outright fraud, but it was enough to trigger the clause, enough to make Newbury pull the plug without question. My phone vibrated again, this time a call from Miranda. I let it ring twice before answering. "Spencer," she hissed, her voice a mix of rage and desperation. "Where the hell are you? Did you hear what just happened? Newbury's backing out something about Veritas Group. Do you know anything about this?" I paused, letting the silence stretch. The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the sidewalk. "Why would I know about your business dealings, Miranda? I'm just the deadweight, remember?" "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "This deal was ironclad. If you've been meddling..." "Meddling," I echoed, my tone calm, almost amused. "You poured wine on my face in front of Chicago's elite, called me worthless, and now you're calling me for help." There was a hitch in her breathing, the background noise of the ballroom fading as she must have stepped into a quieter corner. "Spencer, this isn't the time. The project's collapsing. Investors are walking out. Julian thinks it's a glitch, but... God, if this falls through, we're ruined." I stood pacing slowly under the awning. "You never asked who funds your dreams, did you? Who pulls the strings behind Newbury?" "What are you talking about?" Her voice cracked now, the Queen's facade slipping. "You'll find out soon enough," I said softly. "But remember this, every empire has a foundation. And sometimes the one you step on is the one holding it all up." I hung up before she could respond. Rachel texted, "She's grilling Julian now. He's denying everything, but his face says otherwise. Media's all over it. Headlines incoming." I pocketed the phone and hailed another cab. The night air felt lighter now, the weight of years of silence lifting. Miranda had built her throne on my back, dismissing me as irrelevant. But Clause 47 was just the beginning. The real unraveling, the exposure of Veritas's true owner, would come next. For now, let her scramble in the dark, wondering how her perfect world had shattered so suddenly. I climbed into the cab, directing the driver to my loft. Tomorrow the pieces would fall faster. A week had passed since the debacle at the Waldorf Astoria, and Chicago's relentless pace hadn't slowed, but Miranda's world had ground to a halt. I'd watched from afar as the headlines piled up. Cole & Hart faces investor exodus. Miranda Cole's empire crumbles amid funding freeze. Scandal rocks Chicago's rising star CEO. Social media was ablaze with that viral clip of her pouring wine on me, now dubbed the Merlot Meltdown. Reporters speculated on internal fraud, boardroom betrayals, anything but the truth. I hadn't gone public yet. Let the speculation fester, it was softening the ground. Rachel had kept me updated hourly at first, then daily as the dominoes fell. Cole & Hart's stock had plummeted 43% in the first 48 hours. Suppliers pulled lines of credit. Key employees jumped ship. Julian Hart was holed up in his Gold Coast condo, dodging calls from auditors who'd uncovered those creative expense reports. And Miranda, she'd gone radio silent after our phone call, probably scrambling with her lawyers to salvage what she could. The meeting was set for her office, or what was left of it, in the gleaming tower on Wacker Drive. I arrived unannounced, but Rachel had cleared the way, ensuring security let me through. The lobby buzzed with nervous energy. Whispers followed me to the elevator. On the 45th floor, the Cole & Hart logo still gleamed on the glass doors, but the reception area was eerily quiet, no phones ringing, no assistants bustling. A lone secretary glanced up, her eyes widening. "Mr. Cole, she's in a meeting, but..." "Tell her it's urgent," I said calmly, striding past. The conference room doors were ajar. Inside, Miranda sat at the head of a long table flanked by 2 suits, her attorneys, I presumed. Papers scattered before them, financial statements, emergency filings. Julian wasn't there. Smart move on his part. She looked up as I entered, her face paling beneath the flawless makeup. The black gown from the gala was replaced by a rumpled blouse and slacks, her hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. Exhaustion etched lines around her eyes, the kind that no concealer could hide. "Spencer," she breathed, half rising. "What are you doing here?" The lawyers exchanged glances, one reaching for his phone. I raised a hand. "This is between us. Give us the room." They hesitated, looking to her. She nodded tightly, and they filed out, closing the doors behind them. Alone now, the air thickened with unspoken accusations. She sank back into her chair. "If this is about that night, I'm sorry, it was a mistake." The pressure. "A mistake," I echoed, remaining standing, my voice level. "You humiliated me in front of Chicago's elite, called me worthless, poured wine on my face like I was trash. And now with everything falling apart, you think an apology fixes it?" Her hands trembled as she gripped the table's edge. "The deal collapsed. Veritas pulled out. Newbury won't even return my calls. Our cash flow's frozen. If we don't get an infusion soon, we're bankrupt." She leaned forward, desperation cracking her composure. "Spencer, if you know anyone, any contacts from your old architecture days, please help me." I let the silence stretch, walking slowly to the window. The view overlooked the river, the city's arteries pulsing with life below. "You never wondered about Veritas, did you? Who they really are? Why they invested so heavily in Colin Hart from the start?" She frowned. "They're a private fund. Anonymous backers. What does that have to do with everything?" I turned to face her, pulling a folder from my briefcase and sliding it across the table. She opened it hesitantly, her eyes scanning the documents, incorporation papers, trust agreements, share certificates. Her breath caught as she reached the signature page. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be. Veritas, you're the founder, the controlling shareholder." 60%, I confirmed. "From day one. I set it up through layered entities in Delaware. Every dollar that built this company, your company, came through me. The angel rounds the bridge, loans the Newbury partnership, all mine." She slumped back, the folder slipping from her hands. Why hide it? We could have..." "Because it was for you," I said, my tone unwavering. "You wanted to be the face, the visionary. I let you. I stood in the shadows watching you climb. But you forgot who laid the foundation. You treated me like a relic, a former architect leeching off your success. And Julian, your visionary partner, I know about the affair, the hotels, the business trips. Rachel's reports were thorough." Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over. "Spencer, please, it was a mistake. Julian, he pushed me, said we needed to modernize, cut dead weight. I was wrong. I see that now. Forgive me. We can rebuild together." She stood crossing the room, dropping to her knees before me, clutching my sleeve. "I'll end it with him. Step down if I have to. Just don't let this destroy us. I love you." I looked down at her, the woman who'd once been my everything, now reduced to please on a boardroom floor. Part of me ached, the old love buried deep. But the wine's sting, the laughter echoing in my ears, hardened it. "Love you, love the power I gave you, not me. Remember that night, you poured wine on the man who built your throne, called him worthless. Well, now, you'll see what worthless feels like." She sobbed, her grip tightening. "What are you going to do?" "I've already done it," I replied. "Veritas is pulling all stakes. The board's voting you out this afternoon. Ethical breaches, remember, Julian's under investigation for those consulting fees. And the $750 million project, it's mine now, relocated to a new partner." "No," she gasped, collapsing fully. "You can't. That's my legacy." "Your legacy." I stepped back, her hand falling away. "It was always ours. But you made it yours alone. Leave Chicago, Miranda. Start over somewhere else. If you fight this in court, Veritas will bury you in lawsuits. Consider this mercy." I turned toward the door, her cries echoing behind me. "Spencer, wait, please." But I didn't. The lawyers nodded as I passed, their expressions grim. In the elevator, Rachel called. "Board's convened. She's out. Project's transferred to our new entity in Austin. Clean break." "Perfect," I said, watching the floors tick down. As the doors opened to the lobby, a weight lifted, not vengeance's thrill, but freedom's quiet release. Miranda's dream lay in ashes, but mine, it was just beginning. 2 months had slipped by since that fateful night at the Waldorf Astoria, and Chicago felt like a distant memory, a chapter I'd closed without regret. I'd relocated to Austin, Texas, where the sun baked the earth golden and the tech boom hummed with fresh opportunities. Veritas Group's new headquarters rose on the outskirts, a sleek glass structure I'd designed myself, blending sustainable elements with bold lines. Today marked the unveiling of our revamped urban project, the same $750 million initiative Miranda had chased, now rebranded under Veritas and partnered with a clean slate of investors. No ties to Cole & Hart, no shadows from the past. I stood on the podium in the conference hall overlooking a crowd of executives, local officials, and press. Rachel Lynn flanked me, her sharp suit and confident nod a far cry from the frantic boardrooms we'd navigated. She'd stepped up as my official COO, her legal acumen now channeling into strategy. "Ready," she murmured as the lights dimmed for the presentation. "More than ever," I replied. The slides flickered to life renderings of green spaces, affordable housing integrated with commercial hubs, all aimed at revitalizing underserved Austin neighborhoods. Applause, followed my speech questions, flew about timelines and funding. I answered them all with the quiet assurance I'd honed over years in the shadows. No more hiding. Veritas was mine out in the open, and so was I. As the event wrapped, Rachel pulled me aside in the lobby. "We've got inquiries pouring in. 3 more cities want proposals, and no word from Chicago." I shook my head. None that matters. But the truth was I'd kept tabs. Miranda's fall had been swift and public. Cole & Hart filed for bankruptcy protection within weeks of the pullout. The board, armed with Rachel's dossier on those ethical lapses, had ousted her unanimously. Julian faced charges for embezzlement. Last I'd heard, he was cooperating with prosecutors pointing fingers to save his skin. Miranda herself had vanished from the spotlight, at first resurfacing in tabloid snippets. Fallen CEO spotted in modest apartment. Merlot meltdown haunts Miranda Cole. She'd tried reaching out once about a month ago. I'd been back in Chicago, briefly tying up loose ends at the old penthouse, now solely mine after the trusts kicked in. The doorbell rang late one evening, and through the security feed there she was, disheveled eyes red-rimmed, clutching a coat against the wind. I didn't open the door. Instead, I watched as she pressed the buzzer again, her voice crackling over the intercom. "Spencer, please. I need to talk. I know what I did. Let me explain." There was nothing to explain. I'd already replayed it all in my mind, the wine, the laughter, the years of being diminished. I hit the mute button and walked away, leaving her to the silence she'd created. Reports later confirmed she'd moved to a small rental in the suburbs, scraping by on freelance consulting gigs. The media labeled her the CEO who self-destructed, a cautionary tale in business circles. No more galas, no more power lunches, just the echo of her choices. Back in Austin, as the sun set over the hills, I sat on my new balcony's edge, a glass of scotch in hand. The good stuff, not the watered-down event swill. Rachel joined me occasionally for strategy sessions, but tonight I was alone with my thoughts. I didn't hate Miranda. Hate would mean she still held power over me. No, what I felt was a profound pity, mixed with relief. She'd chased the illusion of control blind to the man who'd handed it to her. The trust we'd built our marriage, her company, had been her greatest asset, and she'd thrown it away with a flick of her wrist. I thought of our early days, those napkin sketches under dim lights when ambition was shared, not wielded like a weapon. If she'd seen my value, then perhaps things would be different. But she hadn't. And now, as Veritas thrived, I built for the future, not revenge, but renewal. Projects that lasted, partnerships rooted in integrity. Rachel and I were equals in this new venture, no secrets, no shadows. In the end, Miranda's loss wasn't the money or the status. It was the realization that poured over her like that Merlot, the man she dismissed, had been her foundation all along. And without it, everything crumbled. As for me, I was free, standing tall in the light I'd always deserved.